welcome to the first episode of the podcast Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And we are passionate Maple Leaf fans that just love talking about everything Toronto Maple Leafs.
So now we know that there are thousands upon thousands, maybe millions of female Maple Leaf fans throughout the world that just want to stay connected to what's going on with their team. And our podcast is here to serve you and deliver you that and so much more. So let's get to it. So first of all, we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction on exactly how we became such massive Leaf fans, the both of us.
Yeah, so
Chris, what about you?
So I got into it through my Uncle John. I used to go over there every Wednesday, Saturday night, watch Hockey Night in Canada back in the day. I'm sure some of our listeners remember that. It was Wednesday and Saturday nights was Hockey Night. And yeah, he got me into the game, watching the game, talking everything Maple Leafs. And then from there, I got my first jersey, was number 10, which there was no name on the back of the jersey back then. So it's been a while, obviously. But I believe that was John Anderson's number. That's what I remember.
Great hamburgers.
Yes, at the time he had a good hamburger joint. And then farther along, my first favorite player was Rick Vaive, number 22. And then, of course, Wendell Clark, number 17. And how about you, Sil?
So for me, I got into it as something that I did with my dad. It was, we would sit down from a very young age, watching the games on Hockey Night in Canada together, and it was kind of something that we shared, and we, would talk hockey together and often argue about hockey together. So it was something that I got to share specifically with my dad. As far as favorite players of mine, when I was young, I really, really loved Mike Palmateer. He was fantastic, acrobatic, really athletic goalie that we had in the 70s. And so I loved watching him. And later on, I became a massive Doug Gilmour fan.
Yes, huge Doug Gilmour fan.
And so he's definitely still one of my favorite players. I just loved watching him. And I didn't have a lot of jerseys growing up, but when I did finally buy one for the first time, it's kind of like a guilty pleasure sort of jersey. I have a number 11 Guy Larose jersey, which people may not necessarily remember him. He was
Probably
a little
not.
bit of a journeyman type player, but I really, really did like him. And now
He was a skilled forward, so
absolutely,
he was
speedy. Anyways,
yeah.
So I
and
did,
then now
and then
you have.
now I have an Austin Matthews jersey. So
Yeah, it's hard to buy jerseys these days. You don't know
it's like
how long they're going to be with the team, basically, right? But we pretty much know Austin's going to be here quite some
so
time.
I figured it was a safe bet to go with that one for now.
Okay, so that's a bit of an introduction about us, and now we're just going to do a brief overview of what this podcast, our first podcast, what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into the 2018-19 season end, how it ended, and we're going to talk about the draft development camp, free agency, the Kadri trade. So let's get to it first with the 2018-19 season end.
So we ended up finishing 3rd overall in the Atlantic and 5th in the conference, 7th league overall.
Yeah.
With 100 points. So that is down a little bit from our previous season. Something to note that the Montreal Canadiens, the Habs, only finished 4 points behind us. It's a little tight at 96, so that's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
And really, we did kind of just drop off a little bit, but for the most part, it was a similar season to the previous.
Yeah, we kind of knew we were playing the Bruins in the playoffs, like later into the season again, and so it ended up. That's basically what ended up happening. We ended up playing the Bruins, and of course, everyone knows we lost in Game 7 to the Bruins, and there was the whole issue with the Kadri suspension. It was almost like a nightmare all over again from the previous year.
That's right.
And then. We were ahead in this series, though, a couple of times, and we should have got it done in Game 6. Freddie played phenomenal that game, but we just didn't get it done. We didn't have the killer instinct. And, and ultimately we lost in Game 7. So
move on.
We'll move on. Yes. Just wanted to give a brief reminder as to how it ended. But we did have the pick in the second round with the 53rd selection. We chose Nick Robertson, who's a left winger from Peterborough Petes, and where he was the second leading scorer. And Robertson was born in California as part of a growing number of new players that are of Asian American descent. A couple of players actually that have already playing in the NHL. One is Kyler Yamamoto, who played a bit with the Oilers last season. And then there's Nick Suzuki, who is with the Habs now. They have high hopes for him. They definitely need somebody at center there. They've been looking, Mark Bergevin has been looking there for quite some time, but he's a young guy, so they're hoping, though, that he'll make the team this year.
So interestingly, there's a little bit of a connection already between Nick Robertson and Mike Babcock.
Yeah, this is kind of fun, actually, going back to when he was a kid.
Yeah, so when he was little, his family did move from California to Michigan, and he discovered that he lived in the same neighborhood as Mike Babcock, who is the coach of the Detroit Red Wings at the time. So he decided that he wanted to find out where he lived. So during Halloween one year, he dressed up as a hockey player wearing Pavel Datsuk's sweater. And he went around the neighborhood trying to find out which house was Babcock's. And of course, he did end up knocking on his door. And he remembers getting a few mini chocolate bars, but he didn't really care that he didn't get one of the large size chocolates. He just wanted to meet him. So it's kind of cool that they sort of have that little bit of connection from when he was a little boy, and now he gets to play for him. So
now he's not going to be looking for chocolates. He's going to be looking for shifts on the ice.
Right.
So, so that's kind of cool. And he definitely impressed the Leaf brass at training camp. Apparently, he was using all of his energy up that they were telling him to slow down. So, so that's good to hear that he's excited to be in his first camp.
Anyways, he's definitely hungry, and I could tell from the interviews that he had during the draft that he gets what it means to play for an Original Six franchise and don that Leaf jersey, and he seems really excited to be part of the team. So
that's good. And then the other signing that we did back in May, we signed from the KHL, Ilya Mikheyev. We signed him to an entry-level contract. He's a big left winger, 24 years old. He played in Omsk for the last couple of seasons in the KHL. He's good size, 6'2", and that's, I think, what Babs really attracted him, because he does have that size and he protects the puck well. He's more of a defensive-minded center, and he's apparently he's going to be maybe replacing Zach Hyman, who had the torn ACL, so he's still rehabbing from that. So at the start of the season, he may play up on the top line, but we'll have to see about that.
Well, hopefully he's going to be a little bit of give us a little bit of help on the penalty kill. Maybe some power play time.
Yeah, he's more of a grinder type of player, as Babs likes those players. We all know that. Mm-hmm. And interesting point for him is that he is number 66. So whether or not he'll actually choose 66 in the NHL, I don't know. I said right, but we'll see how
and
it
it remains to be seen whether he really gets the whole Mario Lemieux kind of connection, but still he has some big shoes to fill if he's going to wear that number for sure.
Yeah, and who else changed their number this year or close to that?
Well, Willie changed his number. He's now going to be going with his moto number 88. Yeah. So looking for a fresh start, I guess.
Yeah, and he started actually in the World Championships. Willie did well. He was the leading scorer there, 5 goals, 13 assists. So yeah, I think he's moving on from last season after missing all of camp, and Okay, moving on to the goalies. Actually, it's going to be interesting coming up to this year's training camp. We have 2 young goalies coming up, Ian Scott and Joseph Wall. They're both 20 years old, and one of them is going to be playing at least for the Marlies this year anyways, definitely. And Wall has been playing in the NCAA at Boston College for the past 3 seasons. And Scott is the reigning CHL goaltender of the year, playing with the Prince Albert Raiders.
So the Leafs' development of these young goalies shows that they believe that one of these kids could potentially be a successor to Anderson.
Yeah, Freddie is the main guy right now.
And that's going to be a little ways down the road. And of course, these guys are really young, and goalies usually don't really come into their own until they're in their mid to late 20s, actually.
Yeah.
But they are starting to try to groom them. And one of the things that they've done is that, for example, with Scott, he was given the opportunity to be part of the Marlies 2018 Calder Cup run. Watching and learning from Garrett Sparks at the time and Calvin Pickard, so that he got the opportunity to sort of be there and soak that championship feel in.
Yeah.
And Wall had a similar job this year, shadowing with the Leafs during their playoff series with the Bruins. So it seems to me that they're really trying to groom these guys, let them see what it really takes to prepare and to learn from the people that are there now, just to kind of get a feel for what it's like to really.
But it's exciting that we have the two prospects. At least we know that, because Freddie won't be here forever, obviously, right? Like, he is 29. So it's exciting to know that we at least have a couple of good young goaltender prospects, and you never know, down the road maybe one of them will be dealt, and we could get somebody somebody that we need at the time. It depends. It depends.
Seems like the league is going, it's hard towards more of those tandem kind of situations, and so goaltending, we know, like, that is
hard to get a goalie. That's for sure.
Whoever gets hot, because even in St. Louis, like Binnington, he wasn't their goalie at the start of the season. He's a rookie guy. He stepped in and basically took over, and now he's kind of solidified himself, and he has his first Stanley Cup already at a young age. So
which brings us for the backup goalie situation, like you were mentioning, that a lot of teams are going to the tandem style goaltending, and even though Freddie seems to be okay playing however many games, he doesn't seem to think there's an issue there. But we did give a PTO, professional tryout, to Michael Norvorth, and so we'll see what happens there. To me, he's always been a Leaf killer. I mean, it's probably, he played with Philly. I know he had a couple of good games against us, but hopefully
and Buffalo and definitely but we don't have very good luck against that team, regardless.
But hopefully
of who's
he'll play well for us, because I think Freddie does need somebody to have confidence that he can have the night off and not have to be worried about going back in there. Even though
he doesn't like to have a night off, but I mean, he can't play every single game. I mean, come on. But so definitely. We look to be solidifying ourselves a little bit more in the net nowadays.
Yeah. So the next topic we're going to discuss is free agency, and wow, that's all we can say.
Where do you even start? Like, Dubas is really, I don't know. He and his team are like performing some sort of magic.
Yeah, he's definitely starting to shape his team now, since taking over from Lou Lamoriello. And he began back in June, mid-June. He did the trade for sending Patrick Marleau to Carolina, for a conditional first-round draft pick. I personally thought that was a little bit steep, but it had to be done. That was one of the first things that needed to be done with the salary cap situation, and trying to get Mitch Marner signed eventually, hopefully soon.
We did save that full, over $6 million there, and I think cap space is kind of becoming a commodity in the NHL nowadays. So that first round pick is basically to pay for that cap space.
Yeah. Then he followed up that with the signing of Kapanen and Janssen, Andreas Janssen, and they're pretty good deals. Kapanen 3 years at $3.2 million per year, and Janssen was 4 years at $3.4 million average annual value. So it was important to get those wingers signed. Anyways, Kapanen, I personally Kapanen is a little bit farther along in his development, and I could just tell after he got signed, he was all excited. He went on Twitter or Instagram and was saying how great he felt about being a Maple Leaf and all that. So that's what we like to see. And Janssen is getting there. That was his first season last year,
and he really did finish strong. So definitely, I think we're gonna see good things from both these guys going forward. Yeah, especially now that they have their contracts are done. They don't have that on their plate anymore, so they don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. Then we get into the trade situation here. The trade with Nikita Zaitsev. Of course, he apparently didn't want to be at Maple Leaf anymore. I'm not sure why, but he chose, and that was actually good for us because we needed to get rid of his salary.
That's
and
right.
Thank you, Eugene Melnick. He took on the salary, and
The whole thing.
yeah, but unfortunately, I guess we had to give up Connor Brown. That part of it is a little bit sad, but we had to give up Connor Brown with Zaitsev and Michael Carconi to the Sens for defenseman Cody Ceci, Ben Harper, and forward Aaron Luchuk, and a third-round pick in 2020 is what we got in return, the Leafs. So it's it's just Connor Brown. He was a good Leaf. That's the only thing that I was a little bit, but you couldn't have a guy making over $2 million playing on the fourth line. So
Yeah, with our depth now that we have in the forward ranks, he's just not going to get the ice time warranted for a $2 million deal, especially when we're basically filling the coffers with people playing at the league minimum. They seem to be signing as many at the league minimum, 700,000, as they can. So.
And what we got in return was what we need, right defenseman, Cody Ceci. And I was a bit concerned with that too, but he did sign a 1-year extension now, so we'll see what he can do. He was basically the whipping boy in Ottawa, so we'll see how he does
Hopefully
this year.
here he's not going to be expected to do quite as much as they needed him to do there. So especially after Carlson left, it seemed like there wasn't too much, like considering they have like a really young superstar there. But then he's sort of the veteran presence that they had. So here he's
definitely going to be on the
expectations.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be on the lower pairings on the D. So I think it may help him to perform better here. And and then there's Ben Harper, who probably won't get a lot of minutes. He is a large dude at 6'7".
Definitely imposing for the other team.
Yeah.
He's our version of Chara, but just not as good.
Hey, you never know. Maybe he will turn out. I don't know. But so he's definitely like more of a, basically when Babs needs some grit in the lineup, he's probably going to be the guy that goes in on D. So he definitely will make his presence felt on the other team. So that's a good thing. We don't have enough of that, really.
No. And speaking of those 700,000 league minimum contracts.
Yeah, we have Jason Spezza. That's the next signing that Dubas did and the gang. And basically, I was kind of surprised at this one, but just because he's been around the league quite some time. He's 36 years old now, and
hard to believe.
Yeah, and he played actually in 76 games last year with the Stars. So,
but not as much in the playoffs. I think he got a lot less ice time, and towards the end didn't really play as much.
Yeah,
but that's probably why he's more expendable for their team.
Yeah, and he had the discussion with Babs before coming to the Leafs. He basically said that told him that he's going to be more of a fourth line player, probably like at center, but at least he can take the draws there. He can feel comfortable with him taking the draw, being on a right-handed centerman as well. And
I think he's also sort of embracing that role of being more of that kind of veteran mentor to the team. He's probably not going to be like Marleau, where he's inviting everybody over for Christmas and stuff like that. But but at the same time,
and playing mini sticks with the kids.
Exactly. Although you never know, you might just step into that. We don't know, but so he does realize that that's definitely going to be part of what he needs to do.
Yeah, and he'll be on the PK as well, and a little bit on the power play probably as well. After the Jason Spezza deal, then Dubas was up to his big tricks this time, sending Nazem Kadri to Colorado with Callie Rosen and a third-round pick. And in exchange, we got Tyson Barrie, Alexander Kerfoot, and a sixth-round pick. And brilliant, Kyle Dubas managed to get Joe Sakic to pay half of Barry's salary. So that was pretty good for this upcoming season.
More cap space. That is the theme of the summer dealings. It's all about the cap space, which is for one Mitch Marner
Yes,
to give
and
us flexibility to
hopefully
sign him.
he gets it through his head that we are trying very desperately to get the room to pay him what he wants, hopefully, like, or what is good for both the team and him.
Well, I obviously, like, they want to pay him what he's worth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they recognize that he's an important player for
Yeah.
our team, like
Yeah.
so important. They definitely want him back. So they're doing everything they can in their power.
And
to make that
unfortunately,
happen.
though, that means that you have to get rid of good players too. And
Yeah, sadly.
Naz was a good player, 10 seasons here, and longest serving Leaf at the time.
Yeah, and he really grew into the player that he is today in this organization. Like I remember at the very beginning, he had a really, really rocky start when he
Yeah.
was with the Marlies
for
for
sure.
that time.
Yeah.
And he
And Shani
went
had
through
to put him
some
in his
ups and
place.
downs, even as a young player on the Leafs roster. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has really grown into, for the most part, a responsible.
He's a second line.
player.
He's a second
Yeah.
line center.
And I think that's
Yeah.
the other part too, is that when we got John Tavares, his minutes dropped,
Yeah.
and he needs to be playing more. So
Yeah.
this is going to be good for him. So what I like about this deal is that it's one of those hockey deals that is really, really benefits both teams.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
benefit the players on both teams a lot, and this is going to be great for him because he's going to have a larger role there.
Yeah.
So
And it's great for us because we get our number one right hand defenseman.
yeah, I think if you had asked anybody, nobody thought that it's possible that we could end up with a defenseman like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, right now we have so much depth too at right D. Like now we
We
have
finally got some balance.
yeah, we got Tyson Barry, Cody Cece. Then just this past week we got Jordan Schmaltz, who's he's actually a first round pick of the St. Louis Blues.
That's right. And actually, in that
So-
2012 draft class,
Yeah.
we actually now have 3 of the 10 defensemen drafted in the first round.
Yeah,
Which is pretty incredible.
So Babs has been so far. I mean, there's still a little ways to go before training camp starts, but Babs has a lot of tools to work with, and
He was asking for depth, so they delivered. So now it's his turn to make good on.
make everything work.
Yeah.
Put the pieces of the puzzle together to
Yes,
make it
'cause
work.
We cannot have another first round exit.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
just not acceptable.
No, it's not. And if that happens, definitely, I think, as much as I like Babs, he'd probably be the one. He's going into his 4th season now, so I think he's been given a few opportunities now to get us out of the first round of the
Exactly.
playoffs. Yeah.
And as far as I know, as far as the money that he's owed, I think his contract was front loaded as well. So
Yeah.
he's not getting as much. I mean, not that really
Yeah, it
matters.
doesn't matter
It's
to-
not a salary cap situation. But if
yeah.
people are going to complain that we still owe him a lot of money, well,
Yeah.
he's already gotten most of it.
Yeah, and and then I guess the most recent deal too involved Garrett Sparks going to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for David Clarkson.
Yes, coming back into the fold.
Now this one,
sort of.
yeah, sort of, but this one it just gave me a headache. Basically, I didn't really want to think about it. All that I know is that eventually it gives us more room to sign Mitch Marner once we put his money on. And it's kind of weird. It's David Clarkson's original contract that he signed with us it's coming back to us for the final season.
Yeah, because when Columbus took him, it was for the full amount.
Yeah.
We didn't end up paying any of that salary.
Yeah.
Or the Leafs didn't. Sorry, I keep saying we because that's how passionate we are.
Yes,
We say we.
it's us, we.
Anyway, so that contract is coming back for, I think it's pretty much full value.
Yes, yeah.
And but what it does do is when it goes, because he's not expected to play
Yes,
for the season.
definitely, yeah.
When we add that to our other contract for the long-term injury reserve, which is Nathan Horton,
Yeah.
that actually gives us maximum impact, maximum use of that stipulation for the long-term injury reserve, and we then gain some extra cap space, which again gives us more leverage to sign one Mitch Marner.
Yes, yeah. And
So it all comes down. Every single move that has been made this summer is boiling down to us getting that guy to frickin' put his signature on the deal.
Yes.
Come on, Mitch, let's do this.
yeah, so for the next episode, hopefully we'll have that saying
Yes.
that we'll be
We'll be popping some
having-
champagne.
yeah. That's what we've had for you for this first episode of Ladies Talking Leafs.
So join us on the first Wednesday of every month to stay up to date on everything to do with the Leafs. Till next time.
Until next time,
Go Leafs, go!